Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock, which means it's time for another video, another Talk Magic actually. And I am here talking today to one of my, somebody who I consider a really close friend, an absolutely amazing guy, somebody who is an incredible magician, and somebody who I have interviewed on Talk Magic before. Now, if you haven't seen this person, I'll tell you right now, it's Mark Waddington. I'll introduce him in a second. If you haven't seen Mark Waddington's first interview on Talk Magic, please do so. It's probably the best interview I ever did. And one of the reasons is Mark was just 100% completely open and honest about, first of all, his journey into magic and becoming, I think it's safe to say, one of the most successful wedding magicians in the country, literally breaking his neck, going out performing the weddings 6, 7 days a week and absolutely nailing it. But at the same time, it was a very honest interview in terms of he talked about a lot of troubles that he had. He talked about a lot of issues he had. We covered a lot of mental health issues on that Talk Magic, and I think we had more responses from people just saying how amazing the interview was from that interview than anything that I've ever done. So please check it out. Now, that interview was done about 3 years ago. We were just coming out of lockdown. We were kind of in lockdown, coming out of lockdown. The world was opening back up. And Mark had he finished the interview by saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if magic's going to be part of my life anymore. And I've really been wanting Mark to do a follow-on interview for this for a while, because in the 3 years since we did that first interview, his life has changed in so many different ways. And it's changed, I think, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think it's changed in such a positive way. And one thing that's caused that is not being involved with magic as much as he was. And it's interesting to get that take on things, where a lot of the time you'll hear people talk on this channel about, hey, I'm a professional magician and that's all I do, and that's absolutely amazing. And they naturally talk about the good part about being a magician. Well, in actual fact, it's very lonely, it's very hard, it's very difficult, it's very stressful, and it's not for everybody. And here's somebody who was literally at the top of their game. Anybody who watched Mark on social media would go, oh my God, I wish I had the amount of gigs this guy was getting. I wish I was everywhere like this guy was getting. And then he's kind of moved in a completely different direction and pushed it all the way. So it's going to be, but being as successful as he ever was, but in a completely different arena, while still being very much rooted in the world of magic as well. And it's really inspirational what he's done over the last 3 years. So I'm really excited to bring him onto the channel and chat to him again. With that all being said, please let me introduce to you an incredible magician, a good friend, a really, really, really motivational, inspirational guy, the one and only Mark Waddington. How you doing, Mark?
I am good, and you are absolutely the king of intros. I've said this before, I'll say it again, the king of intros. I am so happy to be here. I've been so excited about doing this follow-up. You've seen what's been happening over the past 3 years, and I'm actually really excited to tell you about what's been going on and the changes that I've made. And yeah, I'm really glad to be back here.
I'm really glad to have you back. I'm really glad to have you back, and we're going to talk about a whole bunch of different stuff. We're not going to talk about what we covered in the first video.
No.
So, if you want to know how Mark got into magic, if you want to know how Mark was, working for a telecommunications company and then moved into magic and then broke his neck traveling around, if you want to know all about that, you can go back and watch that video. But can you kind of, for people that haven't seen that, can you, in a couple of minutes, Mark, synopsisize what we kind of talked about in that first interview and kind of where we left it? Would that be okay?
Yeah, of course. So when we last did an interview, we were, like you say, we were just coming out of lockdown. Everything was opening back up, and my diary was starting to fill in again. It was all about the perspective about how we're going to get the work coming back in. The fact that I was doing so much better with my mental health and that I was ready to get back to work. As a magician, the plan was to continue being a magician, and somehow that didn't happen. It's a really, really strange journey. I'm sitting here now thinking back on the past 3 years since we spoke and everything that's happened in my personal life and my family life and how that's molded my work life and it's put me in a position that 3 years ago I didn't even know was an option. Like genuinely 3 years ago, I did not know I would be in this position that I'm in now. It wasn't a plan. There was no concept. I said quite a lot in the last interview that, you know, the things that had happened to me were all down to dumb luck, and that has still carried on, really. You know, it still has been very much that dumb luck thing. So yeah, I'm very excited to share with you what the past 3 years has been.
Well, let's talk about this. So you're coming out of lockdown.
Yeah.
Suffice to say, you didn't need to make any changes because you had a ton of wedding clients that were wanting to book back in with you.
Yeah.
In fact, you were actually positioned in a better position coming out of lockdown because there were a lot of people, there were a lot of professional magicians during lockdown that have basically just given up, quit,
Yeah.
not to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And so, you know, anybody in this country will know in kind of 2021, 2022, that was very much a boom period. People had been sitting in their house for a couple of years. They didn't have nothing to spend the money on. They were being given furlough or government grants, whatever it is. They had money. People were like wanting to spend money on lavish weddings, and people wanting to go out and be entertained again. So you had no problem getting work. You had no problem. It wasn't like, oh my God, I've come out of lockdown and nobody wants to book me. That was not the case, right?
No, not at all. No, it was family circumstance that made me have to change everything. About a month after, in the last interview that we did, I spoke about how I was doing some part-time work as a scare actor. I'd just been booked that very day to do some scare acting at a tourist attraction, just a few miles away from where I live. So I did that run, got invited back to go do bonfire night. And then my family life changed literally overnight. Further context back, for those who don't know, I'm a single parent. I have a daughter who will be 10 in a couple of weeks. I have full custody of her. It's just me raising her with the help of my parents. But unfortunately, just after bonfire night, my dad ended up extremely poorly. It turns out he got COVID. The COVID that he got was so bad that it put him in hospital and it put him in a coma for a month on life support. We learned quite a few months afterwards that he wasn't supposed to live the night. It was all the doctors had marked him off that night. It was a case of that man was going to die. Good news, he's absolutely fine now. Still the same person he always was, except he's got walking sticks and he's a bit deaf now. But other than that, so I was kind of in this position of going, oh my God, what do I do? I can't be traveling doing gigs anymore. I'm raising a child by myself. I haven't got that support network because my dad was in hospital. We did not know if he was going to live or die. So I had to look at other avenues. It wasn't going to be something that fit into my lifestyle, being in London one day, then being in Scotland the next day, then being in Ireland the day after that, then being in France the day after that. That had to stop. It absolutely had to stop. I had to be there for my family, not only for my daughter. I had to be there for my mum. I had to be there for my brother. I had to be there for my dad. I mean, bless him, he didn't know at the time, but, you know, we had to be there, so everything had to change. So I ended up, that Christmas, I was already booked to do some acting in Leeds. I was going to be the man in red for a major tourist attraction in Leeds, and I had to cancel off quite a lot of those dates just because I needed to be at home. And I spoke to the farm, and I just said, look, can I have a couple of dates just because it's nice and local? I can do these kind of hours. Having said that, if I get a phone call saying I have to go, then I have to go. And bless them, they fill my diary for the month, doing the Christmas adventure there. And I thought I'd just be a part-time actor, whatever. And then about a week into it, I got called into the office, and I'm thinking, oh shit, what have I done wrong? Like, have I done a line that's not right? Have I missed something? And they basically said, we've been thinking about what you do, and we really like the way you work, and we like your style, and we like the things that you can offer. We've created a job for you. Like, we want a resident entertainer. We want an in-house entertainer, because previous to that, they just sort of subcontracted people in for various different times of year. Would you like to be our in-house entertainer? And I was like, oh my God, yes, I've got some stability. It's 6 miles from my house. It's a 12-minute drive door to door. So perfect. I accepted that. And then month on month, year on year, the contracts expanded and expanded. So I'm now, in the space of 3 years, I've gone from being a part-time actor to I'm currently the guest experience manager. I'm a daily operations manager for entertainment. I write all the shows. I come up with all the concepts. I produce everything. I costume design. So yeah, I have had a massive, massive change in direction, and it's all because of the uncertainty that my family had at the time. Daddy's absolutely fine now. He's doing great. Family's great. My daughter's great. But I'm happy now because I've got a stable income. I've got a job that I love, work on a great team. And yeah, it's all worked out really, really well.
So let's delve into this. Like,
Yes.
questions. Now, the first question is, I said in the intro that a lot of people that come on this channel and do an interview with me, they talk about how being a professional magician was the best thing that they've ever done in their life, and blah blah blah. And they paint it with a very rosy kind of the picture, you know, like they look at all the positives.
Yeah.
How do you think, like, nobody ever really talks about the negatives of being a magician?
Yeah.
Especially a jobbing close-up magician where you're going out and doing gig and gig and gig. So I suppose the question is, like, if I could wave a magic wand now and put you back as a full-time magician with the job, with all the gigs that you did, bearing in mind, for people that don't know, go back and look at the first interview. Mark's had a very successful career as a magician, right from a young age. You were performing with, like, very well-known TV stars. Like, the stages that you performed on were incredible. Like, you've achieved more as a magician than most working pros could ever hope to actually achieve. So, and then you just, like, one day just were like, right, okay, nope, not going to do that anymore, and understand why. But if I could snap my fingers and make it all go back to the way it was, while still, now that your dad's better, now that you've got that support system in there for Lizzie, now that your daughter's 10, she's a bit older, she's going to go to high school next year. I know with Ryland in high school, like, he sorts himself out. He walks home from school, he lets himself to the house, he makes himself some toast. Like, I don't have to come back straight away for him. Like, almost at that point, would you ever go back?
No.
See, that's interesting.
No, I won't go back. Don't get me wrong, I do miss aspects of it. I get very excited when I do a gig. So I've probably gone from, I don't know, I probably do all in 4 or 5 gigs a month now at the top end in terms of as a freelancer, doing close-ups, doing weddings, doing corporate events. Which, when you compare to what I was doing anything up to about 30 a month pre-COVID. That came with a lot of stress. It came with a lot of travel. It came with a lot of anxiety. It came with a lot of loneliness. It came with, like, you'd go to a job, you wouldn't know a single person there. You do 2 hours, you go home, that's it, job done. Bit of cash in your pocket or whatever, you sorted. No, I won't go back. I won't go back. I still enjoy it thoroughly, but my life doesn't suit that lifestyle anymore, and I think that's something that I've created for myself. I don't think I want it to suit my lifestyle either. I like the beauty that I've got now. I work more in a way. I'm contracted to 5 days a week minimum. Excuse me. Sometimes I'm doing 6 days a week. It can be that I'm doing 7 days a week, but I finish at a reasonable time. I get home for a reasonable time. I get home for tea time. I can take my daughter swimming. I can take her to the cinema. We can go out for tea. We can do all of those things that I could never, ever do when I was a professional magician, or a jobbing magician is probably the better phrase, because I could set off at 9 o'clock in the morning and not get home till 3 o'clock in the morning. So I had no life whatsoever. Whereas now I actually have somewhat of a life. Don't get me wrong, there is periods of time where it's not always possible to have for it to be finishing at 4 o'clock or finishing at 5 o'clock. There are, like over Halloween and Christmas, we are doing long days, but I do get time where I can enjoy my family and I can spend time with my family, which is something I never used to have before. So no, looking back, I don't think I'd want to go back to where I was. I do miss it. Don't get me wrong. I do miss it, but I don't think I want to go back to where I was.
What advice would you give for magicians that are watching this? Because a lot of the time, and like I say, it's not talked about, it's that kind of tears of a clown thing, isn't it? It's kind
Mm.
of like you talked about loneliness.
Yeah,
You could be on the road all day, going to a gig. You got to be the life and soul of the party. You got to be the guy that everybody wants to hang out with, and then you're back
yeah,
to the car doing a 4 hour drive, and it's like you're once again all on your own. And people go, "Oh, Craig's the busiest magician in
yeah,
UK or whatever." You got to remember, I run a company, so I get to
yeah,
pick and choose which gigs I go to. If I don't
yeah,
want to go and do a gig, I don't have to go and do a gig. So my situation is very different, and I think that it's allowed me to spend more time with my kids, as you know, which is
yeah.
for me as well. What advice would you give to people that are out doing it and then maybe are kind of thinking, oh, it's just
I think you've got to see what your opportunities are. I think you've got to decide if you want to be in the entertainment industry. I always, I don't want to be away from the entertainment industry. I love entertainment. I've just found a different route through entertainment. I think really sit back and look at it and think, is this what you want? Because being a magician and being a jobbing magician is a lifestyle choice. Um, it's not your standard job. It's not a 9 till 5. There's no patterns other than when your busy periods are going to be, and when your quiet periods are going to be. But there's no patterns. There's no consistency. There's no as a magician doing close-up gigs, you're constantly chasing the next contract. So I always used to think as soon as I'd finished one job, I had to find the next contract. Even though I might have had 30 gigs in the bank, or 30 gigs in the bank for that next month, should I say, I'd still be chasing the next contract because that's one less day. And certainly with weddings happen in theory once in somebody's life. So you've not got a lot of repeat custom there. If you've got a corporate that has you year in, year out, I've had corporates that I still do nowadays, that I've been doing for 10, 15 years. They're great, but a wedding is not a regular booking. You will get to work for their friends and family, but it's not like you can go to them, right, I'll put you in the diary for next year. That doesn't happen. So you are constantly chasing to fill in those diary slots. Just think about if it is something that you want to be, you will have a great life as a close-up magician. Promise you that. You will have an absolutely great life. But you've got to decide, is that life going to fit in with the real life, which is being a parent, being a dad, being a mom, being a family guy? Is it going to fit in with that? Is it going to fit in with your lifestyle, with your social circle? And the way that I looked at it was, it didn't anymore. It no longer fit in with that. You know, Certainly when you're a single parent, you have to sacrifice quite a lot. Going out doesn't happen, and I wanted to make sure I had as much time for my family as possible. And my family's tiny, we've got a very small family, but it's just me and my daughter. And I want to give her the best life that I can. So changing careers okay, my net income has gone down a little bit. But for what I've lost in income, I have got tenfold back in family experience. So weigh up what's important to you, I think, is
and
probably advice.
stability. And
Stability. This is it. I've got a salary. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, how many entertainers do you know that are working to a salary that know that the bills are covered every month? If I do gigs in a month, I'm doing it for holiday money nowadays. I'm not doing it to pay the bills. I'm doing it to go on holiday with. So that is quite a nice position to be in, knowing that no matter what happens, I have got a guaranteed income. I know that absolutely everything is covered each month. So it's a very privileged position to be in, actually.
that's amazing. That's fantastic. And here's a question for you.
Mm.
You talked about how a lot of what you do at the farm is, and we'll talk about creating in a bit, but
Mm.
a lot of the audiences are kind of younger audiences
Yes.
than what you've been used to.
Yes.
And I speak to close-up magicians all the time that make it very, very clear. I'm not a kids magician. I don't
Mhm.
perform kids. They'll actively avoid any tables with children on them at a wedding.
Yeah.
Did you find it a hard thing to adapt to? Because I've been saying on this channel ever since I started it that the best thing a close-up magician can do is learn how to perform for kids.
Yeah.
I do lots of kid shows because by learning to perform to kids, I think it makes you a much better performer. And a lot of
Mm.
close magicians I speak to are scared of that, and like they're scared of the thought of
Yeah.
performing for kids. Like, was that something that you had to adapt to? Was that difficult?
Massively. Yeah. There was a really big learning curve. There are still things that I have to get right with it, and I do really have to think about it. So, when I'm doing close-up gigs, when I'm working as a magician, So let's use two terms here just to make it a little bit easier in my head. So if I'm referring to being a magician, that's somebody who does weddings, does corporates, like I used to. If I say entertainer, that's my position now. Let's just to make things a bit clearer on that. So when I am out and I'm performing as a magician, it's still an adult act. It's still the Jimmy Carter's magic that it always was. It's still the fisting jokes. It's still the innuendo. It's the dildo stuff. It's everything like that. That is still happening. That's become my catharsis now. Because obviously during the day when I'm doing the stuff at the farm, I have to be, my target audience is 4 to 10 years old, so I have to be child friendly. One thing that I do though is I'm happy to use a slight touch of innuendo, a very, very mild innuendo, because my ethos is I want to entertain the adults just as much as I entertain the children, because it's the adults that pay for the tickets. They bring the children, so I want the kids to be thoroughly entertained. I want the grown-ups to really enjoy it as well. So that was quite an adjustment period. There was many times, certainly in my first year, where I would get called to the office to, oh, by the way, Mark, you've done this line. You can't do that. And I'm like, oh, okay, then fair enough. So that was quite a learning curve. I mean, I wasn't, effing and jeffing or anything like that. I wasn't being completely smutty, but there's the couple of lines that I'd maybe used that you could maybe read into in the wrong way. So that was an adjustment. But now I think I've got it pretty much sewn now. I understand a lot more about kids. I understand a lot more about family entertainment. I understand about the demands, what you can and can't do, the terms you should use. Like we have guidelines that we use to make sure that everybody's included and everything's inclusive. Like we have a 20-page document that we send out to our subcontracted performers to go through what our expectancy is of people. We don't use gendered terms. We don't draw attention to protected characteristics. Things like this, which maybe as a close-up magician you wouldn't have to think too much about. Whereas nowadays, and certainly with the environment that I work in, we have to really think about stuff like that. So yeah, it's been quite an adjustment, but I feel like I've learned more in the past 3 years than I probably learned in the past 10 years.
Wow,
Yeah, I think so.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, we'll get into it later, but just the sheer diversity of my job. Like
Let's talk
when I
about
say,
that. Yeah, let's talk about the diversity. Let's
okay,
talk about. So you started off as a, just a character worker. You just started as comedy,
character, yeah,
and so
character actor.
how's your progression gone? How's
Okay,
what's a typical day in the life of Mark now? And is there any magic involved when you're at there?
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah.
So there is no such thing as a typical day. Like genuinely, from day to day, my job is completely different. So I'll go through some of the hats that I wear. Senior performer. So I am the senior performer at the farm. I've become the face of the brand identity. So my face is on all the posters and everything like that. It's really weird because I drive into work and I drive past several posters that have got my face smiling back. So that's quite a weird thing. I am a producer. I write things, so I write the shows. I write everything from February through to November. We have somebody else who writes Christmas, but I write everything in that window. But as we're recording now, we're currently sat in the middle of this beginning of December, sorry, and I'm currently writing the end of April. So that's kind of, we're constantly sat down. I am the guest experience manager there, so I look after the output from the farm, but from the guest perspective. So not looking at it in terms of numbers and marketing and budgets and things like that and spreadsheets. I look at what the farm offers purely from the guest perspective, and I become the voice of what the customer wants and what we can do to offer the customer. I will create the concepts. I do costume design. I will lead school trips. I write not legislation, but like our policies on like things like assistance dogs and stuff like that. I enter the farm for awards. I write the award applications. So every single day is different. So for example, today I was leading a school trip who went to go see Father Christmas. Tomorrow I will be finishing off writing Easter and also putting in a proposal for February half term. So that's my day tomorrow. Thursday will be a snag list ready for the Christmas opening again on Saturday. Friday will be school trips. Saturday I will be performing from 8:30 in the morning until 6 p.m. And then Sunday will be a performance day as well. And then next week, I will be going into producing, managing, and performing in a different adventure, which runs for 7 days, all whilst in any spare time going up to the office to deal with emails, to deal with suppliers, to order props, to order costumes. So there is no such thing as a standard day. But at the same time, I'm still doing roughly 500 to 600 magic shows a year. You're crazy.
Bloody hell.
Yeah. 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 Now, when I say magic shows, they're not all necessarily like a kids' party show. I have got a weekend show, which I do about 3 times a day, which is a magic show. But every single show that we do has got an element of magic in it. So, for example, the Christmas adventure that we're doing now is a 2.5-hour experience, but four of the scenes have got magic tricks in them. So, an hour and 20 minutes of the output of a 2.5-hour adventure does involve magic, but in different characters, in different scenes, in different cabins. So I've produced that and overseen all of that as well. So there is magic involved in everything that we do, even down to when we do scare attractions, because that's one thing that we brought in this year. We've opened a brand new scare attraction. I've produced my own scare maze, which is now in the running for quite a few awards by the looks of things. So I'm very proud of that. But even then, we're using magic techniques and stuff like that to add to the guest experience. So yeah, there's magic is still very much at the essence of what I do, but you wouldn't necessarily think it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's who'd have thought I'd be saying all this 3 years ago?
Nobody in a million years. Okay, so do you find, because obviously you've been promoted about 400 times since you've been there in 3 years. I think you're on track to be CEO by the time it's 2026. Like, do you find that as you are progressing up through the company, you're having to do more bullshit, more red tape, and
Yeah.
less kind of on the shop floor? And as somebody who loves entertaining, is that frustrating for you?
Do you know, that's a really interesting question. So obviously I do a lot of production now, in terms of producing the output. I actually really love creating that, because as much as there be hundreds of shows in a year, there's always 4 days a week where there's not, well, in term time, there's always at least 4 days a week where there's not shows on. The rest of the time is when the shows are on. So weekends, bank holidays, school holidays, anything, any day that a child is not typically in school, is a performance day for me. And because of where we're located directly on the Yorkshire-Lancashire border, so the border runs directly through the middle of the farm. Like, for example, when it gets to half term, because Yorkshire and Lancashire are on different weeks, what is a 1-week school holiday becomes a 2-week school holiday for us. So there's actually a lot of performance days. I think my performance days equal to about 240 days a year, somewhere about that. So yeah, there's a lot. And then any time round that. But then at the end of a performance day, I might finish performing at 4 o'clock, and then I might go do 2 or 3 hours in the office writing a show. So it's, you know, I'm not losing any of the performance. With Christmas, I did want to step back from the performance a little bit, because that is relentless. So the way that our Christmas works is we're dispatching 22 guests every 20 minutes. There's a performance every 20 minutes in 10 locations, and it's like a sequence of, you go through all these different scenes. So a typical day over Christmas, 28 shows per performer. It's crazy. And then we're doing that across, like I say, up to about 10 sites. It's a logistical nightmare. So I said this year, look, I want to be on the production side. So I'm doing half of the Christmas run as a producer, half as a performer. I've drawn the short straw, unfortunately, and I've got the early start. So I start work at 8:30, but it means I do finish early as well on those days. I finish by 4 o'clock-ish. So it's not too bad. But then on production days, I might be in for 11 hours. And I am literally overseeing everything from making sure that the guest flow is right, to making sure the performers are looked after, to make sure that if there's a costume snag, that gets fixed. If one of the props stops working, I can fix that within 2 minutes, hopefully. If there's a technical issue, we can get the technicians in the right place. So I love that challenge, and I love that variation in what I do, rather than, as much as when I was a magician, I was going to lots of different places, I was doing the same act day in, day out. Whereas now I have got more variation than you could ever imagine.
Wow. And that brings me to my next question. You're right. A lot of magicians do the same 5 tricks over and over again.
Yep.
Because they know their work, and why change it? It's a different audience every single time. I disagree, but I know a lot of people think that way.
Yeah.
Um, as somebody who's now involved in the production of so many shows and so many things that are going on, do you think that's kind of really helped you from a creativity point of view?
Yeah, I think because I'm having to constantly think of new things. One thing that I have learned, and I think this is quite a big thing, is how many ways you can use a single prop. Um, for example, a dove pan. Like we use a dove pan for maybe 4, 5, 6 of the productions that we make every year. We do about 12 productions a year. We can use it in multiple different ways and not necessarily recognize it. So like the big thing for me is we used a dove pan during Halloween on something called Trick or Treat Street. So we have a village of cabins and you knock on the doors, and we used it then, but then now we're using it at Christmas. So for completely different things. One was to produce these horrible looking spiders and to scare people, whereas now it's actually a magical part of the storyline that we've got for Christmas, and it actually ties in the whole storyline that's going through the Christmas adventure. So I really like that. I like how we can adapt those props as well, and use them in different ways, and not thinking like a magician as well. Like when you're using props as a magician, you're looking for a ta-da. Whereas I think when you're using it in the way that I use things now, using it as part of the full production, it is the tiniest little cog in it, but it's part of the overall show. It's about part of the overall theatrics. So that's what I really enjoy, is the fact that you can use so many different things in different ways. And I am constantly sat having meetings about what can we do. So like, for example, February half term, I've pitched 7 different ideas on different themes that we can do. I don't think there's going to be any magic in this in February half term, although one of them might be completely laced with magic. But that kind of thing. But then even if it's a show about animals, for example, what magic tricks can I put in there? How can I use magic to tell a story about animals, but also without using the actual animals? Because we don't use any animals in our production. We don't use any livestock in the shows. So it's adapting and finding new ways to use things, and using magic techniques to create special effects as well. In a theatrical sense, that's quite good fun, is that? So
Before I ask the next question, because I have another question, I just have to say, I know you very well. When I did the first interview,
yeah,
you'd kind of come through a lot, but you were in a better place when I interviewed you, a much better place.
yeah.
And we were talking mainly about magic. And although you'd done it your entire life, the passion didn't really come across in that interview.
Yeah.
But I've been speaking to you now about this, and just seeing how excited you are. You're talking about on this show and this show and this and this and this. I can tell that like this is an entirely new thing. This is like not an entirely new thing. This is something that you're just really passionate about.
Love it.
Care about it.
Yeah.
A lot of magicians don't have that. They get to a point where they can't just going through the motions. We've all been Anybody who's been a professional magician for any length of time will have done that thing where they turn up at a close-up gig. They've gone out, they've done it, they've done a couple of hours, they've done a great job, the client's happy, they've walked away, and they can't remember a bloody thing that they've done. We've all been there. We've all been there.
We all get there. You get jaded, don't you? That's the thing, because you are doing the same thing day in, day out, and it is very easy to lose the passion. I think certainly when, there is so much travel and so many things going around it, and the self-employed aspect of it as well, can take away a lot of the enjoyment. Nobody starts their magic passion because they want it to be the job. They want it because they enjoy it and they love it. And then what happens is it turns into a job slowly but surely. And then what happens is the passion starts to fade, and it becomes nothing more than a job. Whereas as much as I've got a job in entertainment and entertainment production and hospitality and tourism, like there's so much passion because I'm passionate about the guests. Because in the guest experience position that I've got, I speak to guests day in, day out about what they want. I'm reading the feedback day in, day out. I'm reading the replies to surveys day in, day out. So I'm really in tune with what's going on. And I like picking through all of that and going, right, what can I make for this person? And I think one of the things as well, like today, I took a school of 50 kids around to go see Father Christmas, and those kids were so much fun to work with, and to educate them about animals. I'd be an educator on animals now. Bloody hell, who'd have thought that? Who'd have thought that would actually listen to me for actual educational advice? Not advice, but you know what I mean. So even that, and I genuinely mean it. Like I've taken one day in 3 years. Like I will battle to get to work. I think one of the things that helps that is I'm on an incredible team. Like my boss Tom he's one of my closest friends. You know, and I think that's actually quite a big thing as well. Is when you're a magician, you're on your own. Whereas now I'm part of a creative team. I've got a
Hmm.
desk in an office. I'm sat opposite the social media manager and the business manager and the general manager and my manager and the MD, and we're all sat in one room, chin wagging, having a laugh, getting it all done, and like really collaborating on things. And I really like that collaboration. And between us as a team, we're creating things that I never thought I'd be able to do. Like I never thought I'd produce a scare maze that has got more special effects than you can shake a shitty stick at. I never expected to be doing anything like that. I never expected my name to literally be written on the wall of a scare attraction because I've produced that. That is incredible to me. And the opportunities and the trust that the farm gives me, like Emma, the MD, she turned around to me in August and just said, I want to enter an award for the farm. You're the person that I trust to do it. Pick one of the things that we're doing. And there we go. And I wrote the award. We've been shortlisted for the best small event in Lancashire for 2024. So we find out whether we've won that or not 3 days before the Blackpool Convention. So never expected to be doing stuff like that. But the creativity and creative writing side of what I'm doing, we've all written shows before. Implementing that in a different direction, that's what I'm really liking. I can take those skills that I've learned over all these years as a magician and put it into things like applying for awards or writing a scare attraction or designing an Easter event or working on a way to educate people on dinosaurs. Who'd have thought all that?
Not me.
No, me neither, honestly.
Nah. Do you find it frustrating? Okay, so one of the things about being self-employed is you're your own boss.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there are massive advantages to being employed, but there are also disadvantages. You have a
Yep.
boss. You have accountable. You are accountable to people. You're
Yep.
talking about all these shows that you put together. You have a budget.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you like to put a Las Vegas showcase together, but I'm imagining that you're on a Yorkshire budget. So,
Yep.
like, is that frustrating? Like from that side of things, can it be? Because the amount of magicians I speak to that go, "Oh, I'm basically unemployable now. I could never,"
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. The budget one's quite an interesting one because we don't actually have fixed budgets. We never sort of say this is how much we've got for an event. If the idea is good enough and it's something that we can implement properly, we can make things available. We can beg, borrow, and steal from other events if needs be. But it comes down to turnaround. One of the biggest things I've had to learn is that you don't have a lot of time. So we tore down Halloween on the 7th of November and entirely built an entire Christmas attraction by the 23rd of November. So what's that, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks? We've got an incredible team that did that. I mean, a lot of it, I was doing a lot of the hands-on building, set dressing. I mean, we're quite lucky. We've got an infrastructure there. We've got the cabins that are there, and each one is its individual scene, and we're having to dress that. But then we've got other scenes that we have to build from scratch, and then we've got a new storyline this year, so we need to buy props. And as long as we can justify it, the budget's there. I've got the details that I need to kind of go, right, we need this for this show. Bought, done. Even down to, I know when you came to the farm, did you go on the safari? Did you ever go on our
Yeah,
safari?
yeah.
Right. So even down to that, making that more comfortable. I just had a bit of an idea on how to make that more comfortable. Boom, just order it, Mark. It's fine. Do it. Things like that. So there's actually quite a lot of trust in me as well. There's, as much as it is quite a daunting thing being part of a team and having to be held accountable and stuff like that, I'm very, very fortunate in the fact that they do trust me so much and that I do have a lot of freedom. For example, my first writing credit was Easter, or my first full writing credit was Easter last year, or this year, should I say, 2024. And I just went in with a completely out of the box concept, didn't think they'd go with it. And they were like, yeah, we'll make it happen. And then that's just set everything rolling for the rest. Like nowadays, my manager, Tom, will just say, no, we need to write something for May. Yeah, we've got about 6 hours to come up with something. Go pitch something to me, and then I'll do that. I'll come up with the concepts. I'll come up with 4 or 5 options. I really like this one, Mark. Go write it, and I don't have to really think about it. I mean, I'm constantly sort of shouting through to him, going, "Tom, what do you think of this? What do you think of that?" And then building it up that way. But yeah, I'm very fortunate that there is a lot of trust, and the nature of our business is it's actually it's family orientated, it's family run. There's a lot of families work there. There's a lot of people that are married to other people that work at the farm and stuff like that. So it is a family environment. It doesn't feel corporate. It feels like a family all pulling together to achieve something. So that, maybe I've got a slightly different view on what working in that world is, because it is such a family environment, and I can walk into work and my MD will be stood there dressed like a pumpkin. It's I could walk in and my boss is wearing a scarecrow mask. I could walk in and the dog's wearing, because we've got 3 office dogs. I could walk in and the dog's wearing a suit. It's not your typical place. And then one day we could be doing challenges where we've got new scent pods that are going in the scare attractions, and we're seeing who can sniff it for the longest before throwing up. It is not a typical office. It's incredible as a place.
Sounds it.
So yeah, it doesn't feel like an office job. It doesn't feel like you're working with budgets. It feels like you actually get to play with somebody else's money, actually, in a way. Obviously, we have to justify it. It's not just free reign, but there's a lot of trust goes into what we do. And I really like that I don't actually have to answer to many people. I like that they'll just go, just create something, Mark. We trust you. So
on that,
mm,
I can tell how passionate you are
yeah,
about what you're doing and how you're so super glad that you've gone in that direction and that you
yeah.
wouldn't change it for a second. What made you decide to keep your presence in the magic community? Because you didn't need to. You could have, you get your magic fix by being at the attraction and
Yeah.
developing the shows. But just
Mm,
for people that are watching this, Mark's still going out and doing weddings as and when. It's not something you're actively majorly marketing, but if somebody rings you up, and because of the reputation that you've built up over the last 20 years, you do
yeah.
get people ring you up going, hey, I've got a wedding, come, I've got a corporate, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But also you're heavily involved in the Blackpool Magic Convention.
Hmm.
I know that you've just done your one-man show at the House of Secrets,
That's right.
and off the back of the success of that, you're doing a second date.
That's right. Yep.
Very, very, there's going to be a lot of close-up magicians that would never put a show together,
Mm,
do a show and stand up on stage and do a show. So, like, you're doing an awful lot in the magic world that you don't really
mm,
need to do. Is there
yeah.
a reason for that?
I think what it is because I've learnt new skills. I think so. If we look at just the show that I did at the House of Secrets, that show wouldn't look anything like what it did if it wasn't for the 3 years that I've done at the farm. I've learned so much about sound, lighting, structure, storyline, how to cue a show, what sort of putting beds in places in terms of the musical beds and stuff like that, how to use music effectively. Didn't use any scent pods in my show, but had it been the right kind of show, I would have used scent pods in a show, because that's such a vital part of storytelling, is the smells, the temperature, things like that. I've learned so many things from producing shows at the farm for tourism, for selling tickets essentially. And you kind of go, this is great, I'm learning all these things. But then you sit down at home at night and you go, I could use that to do this show. Actually, now I need a vehicle for it. Okay, I'll ring the old mate Ross. Ross, can I come and put this show in your bar? Yeah, absolutely, Matt. Go and do it. So I think because I've learned all these new skills that I wouldn't have known, or I wouldn't have had I just stayed as a magician, it's revitalized my shows, and it's revitalized the way that I look at things and structure. And why am I doing this? Not necessarily the how, but why am I doing it? And is the motivation to make a child smile, or is it to make them amazed? What is the real motivation behind what I'm doing? So I think that's why I still do things like weddings and corporates, and now started doing stand-up shows, because it's revitalized it. Learning new skills. There's a lot to be said about going out and learning new skills.
So you're saying by not performing as regularly and instead immersing yourself in what is in essence acting, you've
Mhm.
become a better magician.
I think so. I think, yeah, I would say that. Humbly, I'd say it, but I think, yeah, I've learned things because I've had to look at things from a different perspective. I've not had to look at it. I'm not looking at things as a magician anymore. I'm looking at things as a show producer, as an actor, as somebody who's part of a gang show. Because quite a lot of the shows that I do, there's at least 2 of us on stage. Because I'm looking at things from a different angle. And I also think the nature of what we're doing, like obviously we've got to have consistent output day in, day out. we've got to make sure that we're produced. Like, for example, over summer, we were doing 7 shows a day and 8 meet and greets and a phone party. So even down to producing a phone party, the things that there's stuff from that phone party and the structure, and like I've learned how to audio edit now as well, and how to put sound effects into things and how to get effective use out of sound effects. All of those things that I've learned so that I can create entertainment for a farm, I can look at those things and go, actually, that would work for doing a vanishing bottle routine. So yeah, it's just given me a different outlook on it. Rather than thinking as a magician, I think as an entertainer now, and I also think as a producer, and I also think about guest satisfaction with it as well. So
Wow, that's amazing. That's mind blowing. It really is.
yeah,
Wow.
I wouldn't have thought that and it's crazy because looking back, I wouldn't have thought that anything that I was going to learn at the farm would help in my industry, or in the magic industry, should I say? But it's improved everything massively.
Wow, that's great. So, as we've talked about it,
Mm,
if people are anywhere near the Blackpool area and they want to come and watch your
mm.
next show, it's in
Yeah.
January, isn't it?
That's right, 18th of January at the House of Secrets in Blackpool, Russ Brown's House of Secrets. It's the second night of my one night only, and so it's a 2 night only until I inevitably book a third one. So that will be the third night only. But yeah, so the second night of the one night only is on the 18th of January at the House of Secrets. Tickets are £12. They're available online. The show that you will see is not a children's show. It is, I'd say, probably rise age upwards. You know,
Yep.
it's got the innuendo. It's got a bit of the blue that I used to do as a magician, but it's got a little bit. It's a little bit more tamed down now. So if you are in the Blackpool area, please come along and see it. Tickets are limited.
And when Mark says you can get them online, you can get them from the House of Secrets website.
That's right.
The House of Secrets and .co.uk, I believe it is. Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. And talking about Blackpool very briefly, you are still involved with the Facebook group. We talked in the first
Yeah.
video about how that is nightmarish.
Yeah.
I still don't know why you put yourself through that. I get,
Well, do you know what? I've got a
I
better
get
structure to
everything
it
else,
now.
but what the hell you're doing? I think if I have your role,
Yeah.
I think I would have burnt Blackpool down within a day. I've had to deal with as many idiots as you do.
Well, do you know what? I try and keep it as tight as possible now. So I actually don't do much with it from the convention until about this time of year. This is the time of year when I ramp it up. So basically, that group is active all year round, but it gets really, really hectic from about now as people are starting to get Christmas presents and stuff like that, which can include tickets to the convention. So this is when it gets exciting for me. This is when I'm up answering emails until 3 in the morning. This is when I'm up answering silly questions until 2 in the morning, you know, so it becomes intense. But it's that thing of giving back to the magic community, a community that I still adore and love, and I love every aspect of the magic community. So yeah, it's all part of giving it back into it. So
And I'm telling you, I've been watching some of the acts that they're announcing for 2025. I think they're trying to
amazing.
make this the best convention ever, Mark.
Yeah, that's it. See, I don't do the I don't look after the page now, so somebody else is looking after. I purely look after the group, so I'm actually getting the excitement and the buzz now because I'm not getting too much information up front about what's going on. So I'm seeing all these names being announced and going, holy shit, I need to go see that. Dan Sperry doing a kids show. Bloody hell, I've got to go see that. Do you know what I mean? It's things like that I'm very, very excited for. And the names that are coming out are just crazy. I feel like this is going to be a really, really good year for the convention. I mean, I'm looking at the feedback coming through and I'm seeing what people are saying online. So many people are saying that this could be the best one yet. And I fully believe it. I think it will be the best one yet.
Yeah, so do I. So do I. And I know from speaking to Ross and Guy, a lot of the issues that people had last year with queuing and everything, they've put steps in place to make sure
Yeah,
that.
it sounds like they've solved that, doesn't it? Yeah, so it sounds like they've made it a lot more of a user friendly convention. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how it all looks.
Okay. Well, you know what? I want to ask you one more question.
Go on.
And I fully expect an answer that's going to completely change because it did last time. The final question I asked in the first interview was,
Yes.
what's on your bucket list? At no point did it say, producing shows for a tourist attraction in Yorkshire. That was never something that was put on your bucket list, but you
Yeah,
know. So, but now you're there, and that's
yeah,
where you see your passion.
yeah.
My last question is, what goals have you got moving forward? Now you've found this, you've kind of got to the point where you've completely revitalized your career. You've completely moved in a different direction. And within 3 years, you've put yourself into a very successful position, let's be honest.
Yeah.
What else are you wanting to achieve? Are you wanting to, like, if, okay, so for example, if another tourist attraction that's bigger and better poached you and said, "Oh my God, we want you to do with us what you've done there. We'll pay you triple the amount." Like, would you ever consider moving on? I know you've talked about the fam, or are you happy there? Are you wanting, like, what are your goals? What are you wanting to achieve?
I I love the farm. I love everything about it. I have no intentions whatsoever of leaving that place. I have every intention of turning it into the best tourist attraction in the north of England, if not in the UK. That's really, really what I want to do. I want to keep pushing that output of the entertainment and what we offer to our guests, because we're very much we've gone from being a petting farm to being an entertainment centre with a farm. So we've got to keep pushing that. I want to keep pushing boundaries. I want to start bringing things in that you wouldn't see in your typical independent tourist attraction. I want the farm to rival Merlin attractions. That's what I want to do. I really, really want to work towards that. How realistic it is, I've got no idea. But that's where I am now. That's what I want to do. I want to keep pushing the boundaries as far as possible. And like, I even look now, I look back to when I did my very first show solo at the farm in March 2022, and I look at what we're putting out now, and I don't even recognise the stage. Like, we've invested so much into improving the venues and the quality of the shows and the types of shows. I don't even recognize where we are now, and we are, like, for example, our Christmas experience. Like, I was speaking to somebody today who said it rivaled the Lapland UK experience. And like, bloody hell, like, that's something that we've put together and we've created and we put blood, sweat, and tears into, and that in itself is incredible. So I want to win more awards. I want to push the output. I want people to come to what they think is just a farm and be absolutely blown away by the quality of the entertainment. That's where I am now. And who knows what the future holds. But what I know now is that my future is devoted to that place. I am a very, very loyal member of staff there, and I put my heart and soul into the place, and I will continue to do that. So that's my
Amazing.
goal.
And if you had to give a
Mm,
piece of advice to anybody watching this, whether they are a hobbyist or a pro or
mm.
anybody, if you had to give one piece of advice to wrap this up based on your years of experience and what you've experienced the last 3 years, what advice would you give?
If an opportunity comes your way that doesn't sound like it fits you, give it a go, because it might be the best thing that ever happened in your life. Like, I wouldn't have essentially be a yes man. I think, let's say not a yes man, but say yes to things. I would have, looking back when we did that last interview, I think if the farm had asked me on the same day, would you like to have a job here as our resident entertainer? I think I would have said no. But 8 weeks later, would you like to have a job here? Would you like to be our resident entertainer? Oh my God, yes. So take the opportunity. You might be pleasantly surprised. And if it doesn't work out, who cares? You can try something else. Take the opportunity. I promise you, you'll find something. You'll find a passion. I found passion that I never knew that I had. I found passion. I found the same passion that I had when I started as a professional close-up magician in 2010. So yeah, it's reinvented me. It's changed my life. Take the opportunity. Do it. Grab it.
Wow.
Run with it.
And you are such an inspiration. You really are.
Nah, I'm not an
Genuinely.
inspiration. I'm just lucky. But I am completely passionate about what I do, and I love what I do for a living. Like, I never thought anything would top being a magician. But then I think you said it yourself, in this interview, the passion wasn't there. I was dead behind the eyes essentially with it all. And whereas now I am excited for what I do every single day. I have to stop myself from working at home that's the level I'm at because I'm so excited about what we're working on. Like doing an interview like this with yourself, this has prevented me from doing an audio track because I want to do that at work rather than doing it in my home time. Do you know what I mean? So it's so yeah, I am so passionate about what I'm doing, and the things that I'm learning, the skills that I'm learning are incredible. So that's that's another part of it. You might find skills that you never knew you had.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Dude, you're incredible. If people reach out to you, if anybody wants to reach out to you for advice, of which you could give them a lot, can they connect with you on social media?
Of course, come find at Waddington Magic. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Yeah, come find me out. Search for Mark Waddington. Drop me a message. Let's have a chat.
Brilliant. And don't forget, 18th of January,
8th of Jan.
2025, you have Mark's second night of his one night only show. And I'm hopefully me and Ryland are going to be coming to that one. We're in Hull.
I'd love to see you there. I'd love to see you.
Yeah, I'd love to. Ryland, I know, would especially love to. So, yeah, we're in Hull the night before, so I reckon we can make it over. It's
we'll
just
make it happen.
Left. So, yeah,
just turn left to be fine. Come to the farm during the day because I'll be at the farm during the day as well.
We can do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, come to the farm.
Make a weekend of it. Absolutely. Yeah. But mate,
soft play.
You rock. You're awesome. Thank you so much for jumping on the channel. Guys, here's what I want you to do. I want you to leave a comment down below and let Mark know what you thought. It was so nice to do the second interview and just kind of bring everything. It almost feels like, it's you've got the sequel to the film and the sequel's just left you in such a great place. And it's wonderful to see. You're such a good guy. You're one of the nicest people I know. You'd help anybody. And the fact that you're so happy and content with what you're doing and everything, it's just amazing to see. It's fantastic.
Thank you, man.
It really is. So do me a favor, everyone that's watching this. One, leave a comment down below. Let me know, Mark, what you thought. Second of all, connect with this man. Third of all, go watch his show if you're in the UK. And finally, if you are going to the Blackpool Magic Convention and you're going into the group, it's Mark that pretty much single-handedly has to deal with the dickheads in there. So if you are going then
in other words, come and buy me a pint in the Outer Secrets.
Don't be a dickhead, because he's the one that's going to have to deal with it. And if you are a dickhead, come and buy him a drink over the Blackpool weekend to apologise. But I'll be back very, very soon with another video. I'll be back next week with another Talk Magic. But on behalf of the legend himself, Mark Waddington, professional magician and actor extraordinaire, we'll see you again. Mark, thank you.
Bye.